Alright, so we have to talk a bit about how to stay motivated when you're learning language. Because that is the number one problem that a lot of people end up having like 6 months down the line or year down the line, but they're just not seeing progress. Now, some of you might hear a year down the line and then realize that, okay, I don't want to be doing this for an entire year, or I don't want to be keep on doing this for forever. That is completely fine. But whether it's a year down the line, half a year, 3 months, or 2 years, you have to talk about how to stay motivated while learning a language. So, one, right off the bat, when you start, everything is completely new, right? And you're super curious to learn about this new language. Every single word is an achievement, and you feel like you've learned something new. That is how most people end up starting off. That's how I started off with my Portuguese, for instance. I don't really remember how it was for my English, but that is how I started off for my Portuguese. And it was super motivating. But I lost my motivation to learn month down the line. It had become a routine, and I didn't really see immediate payoff of learning one new word when I already had several hundred words that I knew. So I lost motivation a month down the line, first time around when I started learning. I eventually picked it up a few years later, luckily, but I mean, it happens to everyone that you lose motivation. But one thing that you can do to counteract this, that at least helped me, is first of all, you have to remember, it takes a lot more work to increase your vocabulary by 20% once you know 2,000 words than when you know 20 words. Because 20 words and you increase it by 20%, that's 4 words. You know 2,000 words, that's 400 words. Increase it by 20%. Still, it's doable, but it takes a lot longer. You have to remember that, because you can't expect the same rapid growth if you look at it that way. But what you probably also noticed is that it is a lot easier for you to learn 20 words after 6 months. It takes a lot shorter for you to learn 20 new words than it used to take you back when you were starting off. And you can look at it like that, and suddenly it becomes a lot more motivating. For some people, it is enough just to look at it from a different perspective like that. Others, probably like me, prefer to write down what you were working on a few months ago, whether that be you write down the words and you like make you make a list of words that you've learned, or you write down difficult grammar concepts, or you write down, let's say that you keep a journal of what you were working on for that day. You could even do it in your target language, and you could like have a read back after a few months, and you can see how much you've in terms of your sentence structures and stuff like that, and you would actually be able to see that, okay, I've improved a lot. But let's say that you just made a note that, okay, a few months ago I was really struggling with the past tense, suddenly, but at this point I found that really easy. You'll know, okay, I made that progress, I'm not struggling with that anymore. I mean, I've made a video on sort of like unlocks and prerequisites that you need to be able to move on to more difficult things. You can sort of make a list. Let's say, okay, I really want to do this. I really want to, for instance, speak to native speakers. But for me to be able to do that, I'll probably need vocabulary of around, say, 300 words, and I would need to know at least how the language sounds. Be able to both speak a bit and be able to understand when others are speaking to me. And there is the third way of actually keeping it more motivating for you to study. You can make sort of a collection. I mean, it could be done as a list of words, and eventually if you're journaling enough, writing down stuff, that also becomes sort of like a collection once you fill it out, and that is really motivating. But you could also do it with something like flashcards. For instance, I used to use Anki, and I could see, for instance, I reached a point where I had 400 flashcards, something like that, and I could see that, okay, I have 400 flashcards, and I'm not even struggling with most of them. Just I made those a long time ago. Like, this is my collection. These are things that I've done, I've made, do that with books. That is another way of doing it. For instance, I have a massive bookshelf. You can't really see it because it's there. Let me outside, show it off at some point. But I have a massive bookshelf of books that I'm mostly read. But let's say that you're starting off learning and reading in a new language. Sort of have a designated shelf in your bookshelf for books that you've already read, and make it this big thing of moving a book from one shelf up to the shelf of books that you've already read. Once that shelf starts filling out, that also becomes super motivating because you'll have your sort of like trophy shelf. These are the things that I've done. These are books that I've read. You can do that with shows as well. Just make a list, whether it's a physical list, whether it's a list online. A lot of Notion for planning. Such I could even make a list of movies or TV shows that I've watched. It would just be something nice for me. Yeah. Now, another thing that I recently heard on a podcast is whenever you're feeling super motivated, like after you're done studying for the day and you've had a super good session, just try to jot down thoughts and sort of like the reasons that you've been doing it, super motivating things to you, because you know you're going to have those days where you're down, right? But write down these things, and since you know yourself, you're going to know what you'll find motivating. The fact that you're making progress in your language, the fact that pretty soon you'll be able to hold a conversation with it just without any problem, and maybe even set yourself some really ambitious things that you work towards with some heavy prerequisites, sort of like what I was mentioning before. But do it with something like, for instance, buying a trip or just buying the plane tickets to a country where they speak that language. Now I know that isn't something for doing that. It makes you so much more motivated to actually buckle down and do that work, because you know you're going to enjoy that trip so much more if you're able to use the language. That is one way of doing it. Now, if any of these tips sound useful to you, feel free to stick around. There are more tips coming, and I occasionally make videos. So if you're interested in seeing my language learning journey, then have a look at those. And then to round things off, I need your help, because I haven't really had the opportunity to sit down and use proper textbook studying grammar in Portuguese, for instance. And I'm not really sure that I'm going to like it, but I'd like the opportunity to try. Any textbooks that you know that foreigners end up using when they visit Brazil or move to Brazil, they end up using that in order to learn the language. Any books like that, like, leave some recommendations in the comments down below, and very, very thankful for those. And same for YouTubers, and just try to make sure that they're not necessarily meant for language learning, because I don't really want to sit through 20 hours of speaking Portuguese slowly. That's not really my interests. I mean, sure, if you enjoy that, that is well and good for you, but I don't really enjoy that. Instead, I would like some making vlogs or maybe gaming videos. Those are the sort of like main two types of videos that I enjoy. As always, best of luck with your studies, and